Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I've been looking at some pictures of time-lapse ocean photos and I wanted to capture that in today's painting. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you the colors that I used for this, and I'll put them in the description box also, along with the paintbrushes. So I'm starting off with a 1-inch flat brush and I'm going to start blocking in my sky. I'm going for a nice lavender color and I'm taking a little bit of the light blue violet, some ultramarine blue, a little bit of raw sienna, and some quinacridone red until I get the color that I'm going for. I'm going to go ahead and start blocking in my sky about a third of the way up. I'm going to have the majority of the painting be the ocean. I'm going to add to the mixture a little bit of white and magenta just to warm it up and lighten it up a little bit in the middle area here, because I'm going to have some dark clouds, but I'm also going to have the sun right behind the dark clouds shining through. Felt like I didn't get the middle part light enough, so I'm just grabbing some more white and quinacridone magenta to that mixture and putting that back in there and lightening it up just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of my phthalo blue and put it on my palette. I don't have it on there yet, so I'm going to take a little bit of the phthalo blue, and we're going to make the ocean water kind of like a pretty sea glass greenish tone. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of the phthalo blue, raw sienna, and some burnt umber. And it's going to be sort of like a muted greenish color. And I'm taking a lot of white because I want this to be lighter in color. So that's about the color that you want. And I'm just going to come through here and start putting in my water line. And I'm still using my 1-inch flat brush. It's okay to go into the sky a little bit. You can kind of blend that line in. I want it to be really soft and pretty back there, and I don't really want any harsh lines. The sun's going to be kind of in the middle area, illuminating the sky, and I kind of want a little bit of some brightness coming down through the back part of the ocean. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that yellow to that green mixture, and I'm just pulling down. It's just going to look like a nice reflection. The back part of the ocean is going to look pretty calm, and that reflection from the sky is just going to be very faint, but it'll be enough to notice that there is somewhat of a reflection. So just pull down with your brush. I'm taking a little bit of that ultramarine blue and some burnt umber and raw sienna, and I'm just kind of gonna darken it up just a little bit as it comes up through this area. Take some more of that yellow and pull it back down just to incorporate it in this area, in the darker part too, a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and start mixing up a brown with that raw sienna and burnt umber, and I'm just doing my brush from a side-to-side motion, putting in some indication of some distant rocks. And now I'm going to go ahead and put in a bigger rock. This is going to be the rock like right in the foreground. So it's going to be a big one because, again, I want the perception to be pretty strong, like where the beach water and the sand area is. So just go ahead and block that in. I'm using, again, that burnt umber and raw sienna. And I'm going to go ahead and, once this is a little bit drier, put some more highlights on it and shadows. So don't go too light, don't go too dark, just find a good middle ground color. And now I'm going to go ahead and start mixing up what I want to use for the sand, which is ultramarine blue and the raw sienna. Going to add a little bit of burnt umber in there and some white. And I'm doing upwards motions, just taking my brush and swiping up from the bottom. And it's okay if you want to dig into the burnt umber and maybe just plain raw sienna here and there. Color variation in the sand is good. It's going to just help with the detail. I'm doing these upward motions because I want it to just look kind of blurred, and it's kind of hard to explain. If any of you have looked up time-lapse ocean photos on the internet, you'll kind of see what I'm looking or what I'm trying to get at. But everything you just want everything to look fast, like it's fast motion almost. So that's what I'm aiming for. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on my clouds, and I've got a Filbert brush, which is what I really like to use for my clouds. And I'm mixing up some ultramarine blue and magenta, a little bit of yellow, just to dull down a purple color. So that's about the color that I want. I might go a little bit darker in certain areas. And I don't want a ton of paint on my brush. We're going to be scumbling this on, and so you just want a little bit of paint, and you want to do little circle motions with your brush because it's going to help make it look softer on the ends of the clouds. So just do little circular motions on each side of the sky. So we're doing smaller clouds down below in the bottom part of the sky, which is going to make it look farther away. It's going to help give your sky some perspective. So just go ahead and try to shape those out. I'm going to grab even more blue and magenta just to make it a little darker. I'm just going to go ahead and block some bigger clouds in the top area here. Like I said, it is going to help with your perspective in the painting, which is what we want. Taking my finger and kind of just blending it out a little bit along the edge, just to make it a little softer around the edges of the cloud. I'm going to take a little bit of the light blue violet and mix it in with that dark violet color we have. I'm going to start adding in just a little bit of some highlighted areas with it. And with the dry brush, once my paint is almost all off of my brush, I like to kind of drag my brush along some of the areas of the sky just to kind of look like there's some really wispy, light, fluffy clouds that you can barely see. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up some of the Portrait Pink and Quinacridone Red, which is a warmer red. And I'm going to take a little bit of yellow. That combination of colors gives a really, really pretty bright pink color. It's almost like a peach tone, depending on how much yellow or red you put in it, but either way, it just makes the most beautiful shades of pink. So I'm going to take a small, I'm using a small round brush, and I'm kind of using the same method that I do with my clouds, and I'm just kind of doing little scumbling motions, little circles around the edges of the clouds, and I'm going to try to focus on making it a little brighter right in the middle portion, because we're going to have the brightest part of the sun in that area. So you can grab a little more pink as you go outward. So right about here is where I'm gonna have the brightest part of the sun. So I'm just gonna kind of take my brush and kind of blend this color, which I've mixed in with the violet that we had, just so there's a nice blend, but I am gonna lighten it around this area because the sun's gonna be right in the middle, so I want it to illuminate a little bit outwards. So as I start incorporating more detail in this area, I'm going to be picking up more white and more yellow because I want it to be more of a yellower, warmer tone right under this area because, like I said, the sun is going to be right behind this area. So I want it to really shine right down here. So I'm going to outline this area with that bright color I just mixed up. Now I'm going to pick even more yellow up. To really warm it up, and I'm just going to take my brush and glide it along this area and blend it out with my finger. And then you can take your brush and just kind of incorporate some more yellow tones in that area as well, right above the cloud too, right in this middle area. So you've got your more yellow tones in the middle, and as you go outward, it gets more pink. flat brush, and I'm just pulling down a little more yellow tones just to reincorporate that reflection on the ocean back there too. So I've got some phthalo blue mixed with raw sienna, a little bit of burnt umber, and I'm gonna go ahead and put in a wave right in the middle here, and a little more white and yellow. I want it kind of like a greenish blue. And you want something somewhat of an angled brush or a flat brush. So I'm just kind of fanning it outward and flicking my brush down in the shape of the wave. So you're looking at it head on. Pick up a little more white and add it to that mixture. I'm wiping my brush off so I don't have too much paint on there. I'm just going up and blending the bottom of it, blending it outward. Just try to soften those ends just a little bit. And now I'm going to start bringing my brush towards the front of the canvas, and I'm wiggling it back and forth, and I'm using more pressure as I get closer to myself or closer to the bottom of the canvas. So little smaller shapes in the back, and then as you get to the front, press down harder on your brush so more of it is coming off, more of that paint is coming off. So you want to kind of make sure you have a good amount of paint on your brush at this stage, because like I said, you want to be able to push down and create these bigger shapes coming towards you. It's going to help with the depth of the painting. And we are going to be covering a lot of this up, but these are shadow areas. And you can grab a little more sienna, like I just did, to blend into the sand area. Now I'm taking a little bit of sienna on my brush, the raw sienna, and mostly water. You don't want a lot of paint on your brush, you want mostly water. We're gonna kind of glaze over this, just blend it out a little bit. We want it to be a soft blend. Like I said, this is gonna be the illusion of water moving quickly. So you want it to be kind of somewhat blurred, I guess is the look that we're going to be trying to achieve. So just kind of blend those lines out. Go ahead and grab a palette knife. I've got one that has somewhat of like a pointy tip right here. I got it from Hobby Lobby. You can get them in like a pack of 3 and they're all different shapes. So I'm going to take a little bit of blue. I was too blue, so I'm going back and adding some sienna. I had to wipe my palette knife off because I had some colors on there that I didn't like. So I'm just trying to get somewhat of a lighter color to put on the rock for some highlights. So I'm going to go ahead and I got some more white on my palette and I'm just mixing it in with that blue, and I'm grabbing some shades of raw sienna and burnt umber. The blue's kind of gonna gray it down a little bit. It's just gonna mute the orange tones. And you can leave it somewhat marbled like I am, or you can mix it more. So just go ahead and scrape it onto your palette knife. If you have too much on there, it's not going to give you the texture that you're looking for. It's just going to be one big glob of paint. So I like to kind of brush the palette knife off a little bit onto my palette and get some of that excess paint off. And then you just go in and start cutting in some different areas where you want highlights to be. And then you can take your black paint and put it into the areas where you want it to have more shadow. So you're just shaping out your rock is all you're going to be doing right now. Anytime you add highlights and shadows to anything, that is what's going to shape out everything and make it more 3D looking. So just concentrate on trying to put your black where you want shadows to be. And of course the highlighted areas are going to be the areas that are sticking out the most on your rock. And once I let this area somewhat dry, I am going to come back through and put even some lighter highlights on there just to bring it out a little bit more. But I'm just kind of putting in my first initial layer of shadows and highlights on here. So just grab a little more white into that mixture. I am switching back to my 1-inch flat brush, and I'm going to start filling in this area between the big rock and the smaller rocks. I'm using somewhat of that same shade that we did to put in the water, and kind of just putting some little indications of water over some of the areas of that rock. So I'm gonna start incorporating all this whitewash, and I'm gonna be doing the same method where I'm wiggling my brush back and forth in certain areas, and then I'm gonna take my brush and I'm doing just swiping down in little motions. So if you've ever done like waterfall paintings or something like that, it's kind of similar. You're just taking your brush, you want it to be somewhat wet, and you just kind of want to drag these little bits and pieces outward. And the nice thing about this painting is you don't have to be perfect. Like, it's okay if you make you know, some water flow in a certain direction, and then, you know, if you do all different types of layers of this, it's going to give the illusion of it being fast moving water. So it's okay if it's not perfect. Any type of indication of water flowing in whatever direction you want it to flow, as long as it's coming towards you, is fine. Because, like I said, this is somewhat of a time-lapse painting that we're doing. So go ahead and do the same method where we put in the sand. You're going to do that with the whitewash as well. Where you're flicking upwards like this. And the more that you do this, and like I said, as many layers as you want, it will give the indication that it's the water is flowing pretty quickly. So I just put a big chunk down where I want some heavy whitewash to be, and you can go right over it. Make sure you're using, like I said, a lot of water. You want to be glazing this. You don't want just straight white on your brush. I'm not using white. This is kind of like that mixture that we had in the back area. In some certain areas I will grab more white, where I want the whitewash to be heaviest. And but like I said, this is just all random areas. You don't have to copy mine to a T. You can just do kind of whatever you feel like doing. And as long as you're using very thin layers of paint, it's going to give you the effect that you're looking for. So here I picked up a little bit more white, so it's a little brighter. So I'm just putting in a shadow area right here. I used the blue and the burnt umber and the raw sienna for my shadow area. I'm picking up a little bit more white right along the front area right here, but I'm still using some water on my brush, so it is translucent layers. So I'm just going to kind of line this area with some flatter whitewash, since the rock is right there. Now as you're putting in your whitewash back through this area, you can make like smaller shapes, and you can kind of blur it out a little more, not so defined back there since it is farther away. So I had to come back to my painting at this point. I wanted to make it, I wanted to let it dry a little bit so I could put a little more detail in the water and kind of brighten some areas up where I felt like I needed to brighten them up at. So I got to a certain point where I just felt like I was blending too much because it was wet on wet. So I just wanted to kind of step away from it for a little bit and let it dry. So I'm using, as you can see, I'm using straight white from the tube. And obviously this is going to be some areas in your painting that are going to have really heavy whitewash. And just keep blending it out. You don't want any harsh lines, but you do want enough where it looks like the water is flowing. I'm using just really light touches with my brush. I'm not using a lot of pressure as I'm putting these marks in. So see how I'm kind of going in like a couple different directions? That's what's gonna blur it out and make it look like it's moving really quickly too. So like I said, don't get hung up on making it perfect. Just try to put random strokes in where you can. Just trying to brighten up some areas back here. And I'm trying to make my brush strokes shorter back here since it is farther away. So I'm gonna put some flowing water between the swells of the rock. So make sure you're dipping your brush in water and kind of just do along certain areas of the rock. I kind of have some higher areas of the rock and then the lower areas, so I'm just putting it down on the lower areas since the water isn't really flowing high up. You know, we don't have like really big crashing waves, so it would look odd to have water spraying, you know, over the very top of this rock. So just a little bit on the smaller areas. I'm going to take a little bit more white, kind of have it a little heavier along where the water is coming down from the rock. I'm going to start filling this area in. I guess I got sidetracked and forgot to fill that area in. Bright white, and I'm just going to wiggle my brush back and forth, side to side, right along this area, just so it looks like there's a lot of whitewash coming from behind this rock. going to take just a little bit darker color, same thing that we put in the rest of the farthest water. I'm just going to put it along some shadow areas along the section of water between those two rocks. I'm just putting really thin lines back here. Because it's so far away, you just want an indication of maybe some really distant little ripples. I mean, not a lot at all, just some random areas back there. So I'm going to start putting in more of a highlight on that rock, mixing up some of that raw sienna, blue, white, and I scraped off again my palette knife. I don't want a lot of paint on there, just a very little bit. So I just kind of wipe it off and then kind of rub the palette knife into the canvas. I did sign my name on this. I thought I was done, but after looking at it, I just kept going back and looking at it, and I thought, you know, I kind of want a little more whitewash in there. So you can leave as is, or you can add more. I just felt like it wasn't done yet, so I guess I signed my name a little too early. Continue putting in just a little more whitewash, and then it's pretty much done. Like I said, you can leave it with less whitewash or you can put more in. It's completely up to you. I'm just taking my brush and going horizontal. I'm kind of blending everything out just to make it nice and soft. So just lightly blending everything. But this is pretty much it. It was a pretty easy painting. I like the look that I was able to get by doing this. So if you guys are interested in, you know, doing a fast motion water painting, then I hope you guys give this one a try. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you guys like this one. And if you do and you haven't subscribed already, please make sure to do so. And don't forget to click that bell to be alerted of upcoming videos.